You there, Don?
Well, I'm here.
Welcome, everybody, to the second episode of Bourbon Street. On behalf of Don and myself, we're excited to have you back. We've got ourselves an action-packed show where we promised to swear a few times. We're going to answer your questions. And if you're really nice to us, we're going to show you how to drink water with just one hand. Don, I know we want to cover off a lot today. I just want to take a quick step back to our first episode. Thanks for your help in teeing up the launch of the Black Talent Initiative that myself and now dozens of volunteers are a part of. Amazing outpouring of support from across our community. But you know what? A lot has happened since that. And today we're going to cover a lot of topics. But you know, if you think about back to our last show, since then there's been, another murder in Atlanta. Bubba Wallace found a noose in his workplace at Talladega Speedway. Uncle Ben's is now off the package. Juneteenth, which I will admit, until a few weeks ago, I had no idea what Juneteenth is. We celebrated here at our company. And still a lot going on. So, I think a lot of us, quite frankly, were unprepared and caught off guard. And now we need to look ahead. You should all be writing down July 7th, which is Blackout Tuesday, which is the next milestone in the movement, where activists are recommending that people shop only at Black-owned businesses, and also be right in the middle of the Facebook boycott that other organizations are trying to organize. We're going to talk about that and a lot more today. So, Don, I want to chat a little bit about, let's talk about the human side of COVID and what do you want to cover off today?
Well, it's interesting. So how many people, you ran 2 sessions last week, correct?
Yeah.
How many people showed? I know the one you had 20.
20 or so. And the second we had about 42.
And has the momentum continued? Like, has there been more outreach since?
More outreach, lots of people volunteering to take on unique roles. We've got a group who are building a campaign. But I would be lying if I didn't say that I don't feel like it's something we got to keep our shoulder against, keep pushing.
So I did say something last week. I know that some people challenged me on was the fact that I think that if we're not careful, the sentiment will drop off just like it has for the past decade, 400, wherever you take. So we went out and asked the same questions last week when we saw the social unrest was 50% in the US as the number one issue ahead of health and financial issues. So we asked it again. So June 9th was 52% in the US.
Right.
As of yesterday, it had already dropped to 40%. With all the stuff you just mentioned. So that's 34 million Americans pulling out of the conversation. We did it across the globe, and again, it's continually to dwindle off and decline. There's been some significant issues in the past 13 days. So just a word out to anyone that is listening or does listen is the fact if you are truly engaged, if we do not keep the shoulder to it, as you put it, it's going to dissipate down to the normal 20-25%. And nothing will actually happen. So I think that's the human side that's a big issue. And we can talk about that more as we go through. But this does tie into the human side of the COVID issue as well. Unprepared, more from a government and hospitalization perspective. But we went and looked at what people actually truly miss. So I'm going to throw a question. What have you missed in the past 3 months that you haven't been able to do?
This is going to sound obnoxious, but sitting in a restaurant
is the number one, or is they big?
Hugging my parents, sitting in a restaurant, socializing.
Well, that's the restaurant one out of 115 things we looked at. Not to be a nerd, which I am, but 52% mentioned that as number one. Traveling.
What is the overall number one?
Sitting in a restaurant is number one.
Okay.
Going out to a restaurant is the number one thing. Right. Traveling for pleasure was number 6.
Right.
And what we looked at there was we did a bunch of work on travel, and the human side is if you're a brand out there or a travel company out there and you ask the wrong question, you're going to make some really, really bad decisions. And what I mean by that is, if you ask people, will they travel outside the country today, especially in the US, the answer is there's a lot of people scared. They can't travel. So it's a bad question.
We don't want the Americans to go anywhere anyway. So keep up the research.
But even in Canada, the reality is, if you ask, will they go, they want to travel interprovincial. If you ask them where they would go, if they want a trip in 2021, where'd they go? I don't know if I mentioned anything about this last week, but again, it's the same places. People want to go to Italy. They want to go to Hawaii. They want to go to Europe. They want to go to Australia, New Zealand. And some do want to go to the US. So I guess the human side is, given the current restrictions people have on their lives, they can't do what they want. So they can't even answer truthfully. They answer truthfully. They can't answer where they truly want to go because they're restricted. So the human side is they're in this containment, this isolation chamber. They want to get out to restaurants, see people. And thankfully in Toronto, we're now going to stage 2, I guess, tomorrow. But the human side is people can't do what they want to do. So they can't even answer because they're so perplexed. And that's one of the biggest issues with us both running companies is people don't know how to work. People don't know what they can do. They don't know where to travel. So
what were number 2, 3, 4, and 5?
On two, it was 2, 3, 4, 5 is not on the top. It's going out to restaurants, seeing my family is in there, traveling for pleasure, watching events, sports, that type of going to movies, that type of work. Things like shopping that were way down the list. They're individual things. So if you look at what people want to do, they want to camp, right? They want to go outside. They want to go outside. They use the word freedom a lot. But
good luck getting a campground spot. Good luck getting a golf tee time. Good luck renting an RV. We almost resorted to renting an RV this year, because I'm an RV guy.
Well, you're perfect in a trailer park.
But so what's giving people hope? I mean, what are
they looking for hope? I mean, they want to. I mean, the hope is things are getting better. Excluding Florida, Arizona, California, and Texas, the restrictions
are Brazil.
And some of the restrictions are moving down or becoming less stringent. So that's giving them hope, but there still is that anxiousness, especially among young, that 19 to 34 invincible crowd.
Right.
And I think we're seeing it in places where that's where the biggest spike is that they are, I don't know if it's hope or frustration that they're going to go out and enjoy life with some restrictions. I'm not trying to cast a...
but let's talk about mental health for a minute. I mean, you and I don't live in a 400 or 500 or 600 square foot box in the middle of a big city. And if you look at COVID in Canada, right? Ontario, Quebec, and Alberta, 84% of the cases. If you look at COVID in the United States, right? Look at New York, Manhattan, just devastated. So can you blame them? I mean, you want to get outside and
100% not. It's the common sense factor. Is like wash your hands and stay 6 feet away. And I think it's a pretty sane solution. And that brings us to some of the stuff we looked at this week as well was live events, sporting events, community events, cause events, concerts, indoor, outdoor. First thing is about a third are excited that go tomorrow morning. About a third are cautious. And the other third are either scared or need a vaccine. So it's about a third of what's going on about. And so there is that excitement. They see the opening up and then they see Austin Matthews get COVID and wonder what's going to happen with the NHL. They see
Djokovic this morning and 30 players from the LSU football team.
You see Nick Watney in golf, which is the first open event where they're actually showing stuff with record numbers everywhere. So they're confounded by what's going to happen over the next little while. But the interesting thing on the vaccine and scared side, on the human element, is that guys or males, a much higher percentage of males say they need a vaccine to return than females, which not to be chauvinistic, but it was just surprising that the males always have this invincible type of attitude towards them. But even there, a great number need, about 30% to go to an indoor sporting event, want a vaccine.
So what are people missing more? Are they missing the horrific side is missing births and funerals and weddings, but are they missing the everyday things, or are they missing the big things? Is it the trip to Italy, or is it being able to go and hug your dad on Father's Day?
It's both, but it's the hope thing that gets them through. They want to look forward to something. They want to look forward to a trip, a graduation, a big game, the Melbourne Cup, an AFL final. So there's two different things. The day-to-day, they're missing the human interaction. They're also missing the hope of what do I get to do? What does September look like?
Right.
Am I locked in a house? I don't care how big or small your house is. You're still locked in. And we're seeing some things there, but so it's not. I guess the biggest human side is they're not missing one thing. One interesting thing was they're missing seeing people outside their family. While they say they love their family a lot more, right, they are missing more than just their family, more than that nuclear unit of 5 to 10. So where it goes is going to be interesting in both cases. The hope side of things is even if you want to travel, you might not be able to travel the country. Big conversations this week is Greece. How do I get to Greece?
Greece really low on cases?
Greece is open.
Okay. So would you go? Would you go?
A nephew is going to Greece.
Would you go?
I'd go. I got a face mask. I have hand wash, and I think there's soap in Greece. So yeah, I would go. That's me though.
But let's talk about this in seriousness, because I'm tired of people talking about post-COVID. Like, unless you've got a vaccine in your pocket or a cure, why are people talking about post-COVID? I mean, is that not a false hope?
I believe it is. There's no guarantee. It's not going to happen in enough time for people to be happy. So it's going to evolve out. I was hopeful that the heat would take care of it, and I think we've proven that's not going to take care of it. Let's
talk about opening up. I mean, you made a comment about government. I mean, we're sitting here in Canada a little bit arrogant about what our government has done, but when you read what the experts have to say, we're second, quite frankly, only to the U.S. in incompetence as it relates to testing. Our per capita death toll is not great. I mean, Australia has 25 million people, and don't tell me it's a freaking island. I know it's an island, and they only had 100 deaths. Vietnam had no deaths. We're hanging on. Our economy is being crucified. 6-7 provinces have no. I guess I'm ranting right now.
Keep ranting.
I don't see how we have a plan in place at all levels of government. I'd love to know if you see on how to open up safely, so we're protected a year from now. I don't see a plan in place to ensure we've got enough testing and ventilators and you name it, so that a year from now we're ready for a second wave. It's all about testing and tracing. So I'm being very Canadian here. I mean, let's not even talk about the US, but
I'm much more optimistic than you, Mark, in that case. So we'll take Ontario, for example, between 21 and 27,000 people a day. Okay. Of which 200 have it. So we have between 99.2% and 99.4% of people tested don't have it. If you were a car company and had that type of efficiency, you would be thrilled. So the fact that our testing has gone up in Ontario 8 times since April 1st, in my opinion, is a phenomenal achievement. I don't know what number you want to test, but 99.4% not having it. And you remember, they're testing every single person that thinks they have it. Is a pretty good number. So when I say a second wave comes in, we're not testing 200 a day anymore. We're testing 30,000 in Ontario. That has the ability to retard any massive re-outbreak from that standpoint. So I'm very optimistic about it.
I'm glad the researcher feels that way, because I don't. Because I guess what I wonder is, we're going to open up restaurants, stores, and shopping malls tomorrow. People don't understand how to social distance, to be physically distant. They don't understand this concept of staying away. They don't understand the difference between the outdoors and the indoors. Do you honestly feel like there's a strong enough game plan to ensure we don't have a second wave? Because it's going to impact everybody.
So we should have already spiked from the first opening of stage 1. However, you could argue the rates, and we'll be very Ontario specific now, have probably gone about down 40%, while we already went through stage 1 and stage 2 in places. The fact is, it should be going up the other way. Our testing, again, just think about it. 27,000 people tested, 200 have it. That's 26,800 tests. I think we're investing so much money, which is the right thing. So I'm not, but to do 100,000 tests and we get 207 people because we're testing everyone, like, how does that help anyone? It certainly doesn't help our economy. It doesn't help our long-term impact.
Because if you own a swab company.
That's right. So, but if we can keep
swabs, just, their shares are going through the roof.
But they're going to be a couple hundred people or 100 people that are going to have it for a while. The reality is not letting other people into the country, which sounds very Donald Trumpish from 2019, but it's a reality. Yeah. Keeping other people out is going to be the most critical. I have no idea.
How do we balance that with travel? I mean, to your point, domestic tourism is going to have a great 2-year run, but think of our airlines, big businesses, think of our economy, think of trade. How are we going to balance that out? Keeping our borders closed, which I agree with. The
point is, unless you want to have, we either open it up to let the virus run its course, which is a death sentence for millions, or you have to do some stringent closing. But your first comment on, are we prepared? We were vastly not prepared. Now I believe that the human race can do amazing things in short periods of time. And the testing is huge. And people are going to say, no, it's not. It's massive for what's going on. And the reason that we have such success, I believe, is because Canadians are good listeners, better listeners than most. And we can follow and abide by some rules. And some
you're not worried about those 3 U.S. states that you referred to, Georgia and Texas, Florida. They've opened up and now they're spiking like mad.
I'm not. Yeah, but they're spiking like mad, not due to the rallies. They're spiking like mad because the pubs and bars and clubs are going off the rails with no social distancing.
Right.
And their mandate is not the same. So I think the travel issue to the States is going to be massive for Canadians. I think we're going to be traveling to the Caribbean. I just don't, but you can be wrong. But again, when you get 99 I drive people crazy with that number. When you have that many people and that ability to test, we figured out the retirement homes. And if we did not have the retirement home issue, Canada would be in a different situation. We'd be like Australia. I'm not sure, because if you look at where it passed from place to place, that's where it passed. That's where the illness was. That's where the death was. Obviously, there's others as well, but yeah, travel is going to be something people miss for a while. Whether or not we can get events up and running. If you look at the current sports numbers on any event, whether it's golf, highest recorded betting ever. If you look at the viewership, it's top notch. You look at La Liga, top notch. EPL, unbelievable. Everywhere you look, everything we're looking at from consumer attitudes is coming through with consumer behavior. So the reality there is, I think there's some very, very good news if we did not have those 4 states at a record. And they're going to be 3 months to get out of there at a minimum.
Yeah. And I just can't leave this golf thing alone. I know the golf people are going to hate me for saying it, but is it sustainable? On one hand, this might be the best thing that ever happened to golf. And I say that with respect, that it's a place people are surging to golf courses. You can't get a tee time. Golf outside the Tiger effect's been getting hammered. Do you think this can save the sport? Introducing new people.
Save the sport. Again, sports fans are sports fans. So they're not NFL fans, they're sports fans. They like 20 different sports. Right. So it's going to have its day for a long period of time. The interesting thing is esports has had its day for 3 months. And I won't talk about Asia where it's massive, but in Canada, it has not had massive amounts of it has not had record upon record everywhere. They've done some great signings, but yeah, I think the sports are live are going to get the sports fans in. I think once NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, and the NBA reopen, it's going to be interesting. I think the NBA could have their heyday. I think being in Disney, being in a controlled environment, I think the NBA once again could have done what is remarkable to put them even further up the ladder as far as to continue that phenomenal momentum.
We've got a question here about contract tracing and where will government play a more invasive role in this space? So, what's your opinion on that? Because for me, I'm ready to give up some privacy for some safety.
So I have my opinion, but I'll talk about what.
I want to hear your opinion. Don't hide behind the numbers there.
All right. Well, my opinion is that a lot of people won't. That I would personally, I would do it to get in. If it's, I mean, I saw one where it had a green, yellow, red, and the fact if you have it on, who cares for 3 months? As long as I can turn it off, I don't give a shit. Just get me through. So if I can go into the Scotiabank Center because I got my green flag on, or
your immunity passport or your tested passport,
whatever it is, I don't care. Just go. I just don't trust the algorithm in the back. I don't trust the meatheads who are saying that this is good or bad. Like, do they have it nailed down that much that it can't do? I don't believe contract tastings do 3-dimensional, meaning you don't know if you're on the 2nd floor or the 34th floor. They can only do the geographic location. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you're the TD Center and there's 60 stories and you just happen to walk by a person. All of a sudden you get red flagged. So again, but it's better than nothing. I think for rural, it's fantastic. They don't need it. Right. Urban needs it, but just remember, you can't do 3rd dimension and you cannot do subway. You can do in and out. So I think it would be helpful. I'd sign up for it in a second. I just don't think it's the magic bullet.
Gotcha. So you're confident. You feel like we're in a good spot, and that a year from now, this thing might still be running its course, but we're not going to have a massive relapse.
I think from the disease perspective or the virus perspective, I think Canada is in a good spot. As long as we don't get pressure to open our borders too soon to the wrong places, and we continue with the funding for the testing, I think we're in a great spot. I think economically, it's a different conversation.
All right, let's go to economics. Let's talk about it. I mean, you've got the 3 biggest provinces, arguably the haves that we've had the worst results, and the have-nots. I mean, I think Nova Scotia has 1 active case right now. You know, Manitoba, I think, had its first death in a week yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the economic side, I'm talking really about the CERB and CEWS programs. And again, we're being very Canadian here. And the fact is, I think the unemployment out there that is unseen is massive. I think when you're getting 75% subsidies for people, and you get CERB, where you get people not going back to work. And I mean, I've had conversations with people go, why would I bother going back to work? I get $2,000. It's like, it's the disincentive for productivity. So I don't think September through December are going to be great months for anyone in the North American area. That's just financial reality. So yeah, I'm much more concerned about the financial ramifications in 2021 than I am the health ramifications in 2021.
Right. And given so much of our economy is tied to the US, I mean, we might be in a position where we just can't, we're tethered to a falling stone.
Right. And the fact is, that's where the pressure comes from. If they don't allow our goods in unless we allow the people in, or whatever might happen, I mean, we're not in the most advantageous position to actually, we're not in the power position. So yeah, if you combine that, the only saving grace could be the fact that Trump needs to spend his way into the seat again if he can. Right. Which could carry us through the early part of 2021. And hopefully by then we have a vaccine, everything returns to normal, everything returns. And unfortunately, I can be called a realist or cynic at times. So in that case, not that optimistic on the economic front.
Maybe Trump needs to get on TikTok and off of Twitter, but that's another meeting. Okay, so I'm gonna anoint you. We didn't prep this, so be prepared. I'm gonna anoint you, Grand Poobah of the global economy. How do we turn things around? And I want you to Grand Poobah me, and then I want you to talk to me as an entrepreneur. So how do we solve this? We've got borders closed. We've got issues of contaminant. We've got a lack of people and goods. Our economy has historically been tethered to the US. Our supply chains have been historically tethered to Asia. Lots has got to change. We've got people not wanting to go back to their offices and real estate.
So once again, I go back to what I talked about in the prior discussion, I believe, I don't see a big community of the G20 getting together. I don't see us working. This is a world issue. This is the one time all world, all economy, there's no competition here. We have one common enemy. The enemy is the virus. How do we make ourselves a safe state? So how do we actually put 20 countries together to work on a common problem with a common vaccine, with a common protocol, with a common tracing system, so we can actually relieve the fear? With the fear, we're screwed. I mean, so the point is we need to eliminate that through common sense. So the first thing you need to do is you need to get a group together, which we know that people are going to be bad at. So that's the only way that we have to work towards a global common goal. That's crucial.
What about Will Smith? Couldn't we just call Will Smith? We could do a Will Smith movie. Takes on the germs and the invaders, and then he walks down the runway with a gun on his hip and a little child. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, from that standpoint, without collaboration, and that's why I'm a cynic. I'm not optimistic on collaboration because politics gets in the way of it every single time. Where there should be no politics in health, but there is, obviously.
Well, hold on a second. I'm going to interrupt you. So my earlier rant. So I'm obviously, look, I think the Canadian government, being Canadian, we've done a great job with things like the curb and queues. You look at the U.S. where their small business support went into the wrong hands. It got filtered through politics, etc. Lots of trading. But I sit back and look at our government programs. I look at Ontario being released in phases, and I get people love the models, but why is it I can't sit on a patio here, but I can drive an hour west or north and sit on a patio? I don't know if you're aware of this, but I was reading an article the other day that the Public Health Agency of Canada gets their provincial COVID stats faxed to them. Now, I dare you, I don't know if you're at home or your office, I think you're at home. Is your fax machine even plugged in? Is it working?
I only know how to scan.
You're sitting there all freaking confident on the numbers, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe you've got an investment in that shiny paper, fax paper that's still out there, and you've got the last warehouse full of it. But I sit here and I look at it, and I don't think we've done enough testing. I don't think we're in a position where I think tomorrow you're going to have this overcrowding, people running around. It scares me. I wonder, I guess we're getting kicked off in a minute. I wonder how we're going to be ready for 2021. So my point of view is I think all of us need to talk to our governments. We need to talk to our elected officials, because to your point on getting the G20 together, how do we pull that off? I'm giving you the last word.
My last word is I don't believe the government has potentially our best interest at heart. They do somewhat, but the fact is they're not going to collaborate. So I think common sense, washing your hands, is going to get us through with good testing.
Okay. Then I'll take the last word. I have a question for you. I get high school graduation. I get university graduation. Maybe I get grade 8 graduation. Why are people putting signs up for grade 6 graduation? I don't know if you remember back to grade 6, but is that really necessary?
That's parents, not kids. No kid ever asked that. Have a good day. Thank you for your time.
See you next time.